All right. Let's talk about issue 18.
Frontline.
There's talking behind comic scenes, behind the comic scenes. Mark J and Tim. It's the spin-off that has survived. There's no yawning to find the meaning. Is it good? Is it shite? G.I. Joe Frontline on Talking Joe. Well, G.I. Joe Frontline on Talking Joe. G.I. Joe Frontline on Talking Joe. Well, G.I. Joe Frontline on Talking Joe.
So, 18. 18 is Recipe for Destruction, a roadblock spotlight issue. The creative team for this issue, which came out in December 2003, story Mike Norton and Tim Seeley. Writer Tim Seeley returning for writing credits this issue after his art the previous issue. Pencils Mike Norton, inks Clayton Brown, and colors Brett R. Smith. Letters are Dreamer Design, and graphic design is Mike Norton.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
So over to the covers. We have two covers again. Cover A is Tim Seeley. It's kind of in the style of a roadblock mint on card action figure. Roadblock heavy machine gunner, live cooking show host, complete with pug and George Foreman style grill accessory. And cover B is Mike Norton, Andrew Pepoy, and Brett R. Smith. Again, it is a front and back cover, this time featuring Roadblock on the front being assailed by a bunch of dreadnoks.
So cover B does something interesting where the foreground elements, right, the dreadnoks up close to the camera. I don't mean the camera you can see behind the logo. I mean the camera, our eyeball. They are mostly knocked out in blue, and then Roadblock is basically yellow. And so you have this very clear separation of elements. But there's some crazy, like the star that our planet Earth orbits, or a volcano. There's some crazy light source just above Monkey Wrench's left hand, which I think is the red light that they're recording. Although there's also already an on-air light over the doorway or mirror. I can't tell, above Roadblock's head.
Could be a bright studio light, Tim.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I think the idea here is that there's like another studio light sort of where we are, aiming down at Roadblock. And I like the idea of like dramatic colors and a knockout. Like everything in the foreground is blue, right? There's sort of a house style at Marvel right now. Like in most of the X-Men comics, like anything in the extreme foreground is purple. But this is way, way overbaked. Like Roadblock looks like he's just made out of gold or bronze or copper. And he's too shiny, even for like super dramatic, like exaggeration of this cover, which has unusual color with these blues. Cover A is multimedia because there's a thumb and a bit of a hand on the left side holding this mock-up. It's not a real action figure like mint on card custom. It's a Photoshop job to look like it. But we have a real gloved hand on the left side, and then a real texture of a wall, like a brick wall behind it, and then a real photograph of a Roadblock figure behind a Photoshop sort of invention of the like clear blister, and then just pencil art that's been colored for the package art with the explosion behind this civilian version of Roadblock. I love the idea of this. I don't think it entirely works, mostly because the drawing of Roadblock for the card art, where he's got a chef's hat and an apron and he's holding these two accessories, is pencil art that's been colored, and the Photoshop painting of the pug and the George Foreman style grill. It's like you need this to be photorealistic. Like you need sort of that very high level of like I could reach out and touch it. So this cover for me isn't more than the sum of its parts. I'm very aware of it as individual parts, but I appreciate the attempt, and it's a fun try.
I like this one a lot. I don't have the other one, so I don't know for sure what it looks like, but I really do like the cover A with the toy package. Would have been awesome if they could have got somebody like Hector Greedo or someone that could do a passable effort to make the card art for that. But just the little touches, and look at how the pug and the grill are at the bottom of the window thing, because gravity. They're not just like floating in midair, which I could see somebody not thinking about that and just having them in there. Yeah, I mean, obviously the photo of the glove kind of takes you out of it. I'm really not big on photo covers, but then you also have kind of the roadblock figure inside the package is obviously manipulated photo, so it kind of helps to sell it as this is a real object. I'm with Tim. It's not perfect, but I like the attempt.
So it's worth calling out as well that when this was collected, there was a Frontline trade paperback called Frontline One Shots, which collected all of these one and dones. And on the front cover to that, it features Zanya on Zanya as the star, sort of legs up on top of some sort of bank of consoles, and in the background are most of the other characters on the screen. So Beachhead, Stalker, and co. And worth pointing out that it's drawn by Stefano Caselli, who was a rising star and would later go on to be the main artist for the book when it relaunches as G.I. Joe America's Elite, as well as drawing some of the Brandon Jera Master and Apprentice books.
Sort of my overall comment for this comic book is that both of these are unusual covers for a final issue, and this is an unusual issue for a final issue. And it feels like Devil's Due ran out of steam, or had sort of this sounds more negative than I mean it to, but it like had burned off their inventory. It's like, well, we had all 4 of these issues written by Brandon Jera. Let's run it weekly. Like, oh, we got 4 more issues. We're out. We're done. Let's stop publishing this. And there's a note in the letters page, the final reply from Chris Crank, the editor who runs the letters page. It's true that this is the last issue of Frontline for now. This book is taking a break for a bit, with plans to have it returned later in 2004.
Which it never did.
I think we can piece together some things we've heard from our Brandon Jera, Dan Jolly, and Josh Blaylock interviews that, like, okay, we're 2 years in. This comes out the same month, I think, as G.I. Joe 26. And, it's cover dated late 2003. So it's probably coming out in, like, October of 2003. And the Devil's Due team is a little tired, stretched a little thin. They've expanded into all these other books, like Micronauts and Voltron, and 2 G.I. Joe books, and this Transformers crossover, and some of the other stuff that's like Josh Blaylock's like own character. Is it Misplaced? Is that the one with the punk woman?
And they're launching a new G.I. Joe ongoing.
Right, which is the next sentence in that comment at the end of the letters page. Fear not for your G.I. Joe addiction, however, as we'll be continuing to bring the regular monthly arcs plus the new series, G.I. Joe Reloaded, which starts with the Reborn one-shots in January. And Blaylock said that, the relationship with Hasbro, it was never as smooth as it could have been. And, it's right around this time that he stops writing the monthly book. And he's like, I'm exaggerating here, working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So it makes sense to me that they stopped publishing Frontline, even if they could have kept publishing Frontline. The other thing that we should remember is that sales of comics changed between fall 2000 and fall 2003. there was I think there was another sort of a bit of a bubble burst. No, I think we've heard this in sort of our Devil's Due research where, G.I. Joe launched huge
and sort of gradually tapers off as, you get past issue 1 and you're now getting into the 20s. Same with Frontline issue 1, and now you're into the, late teens. Typically you see a, big bang with issue 1, and then the readership declines slowly, which is why you constantly see comics being rebooted with a new issue 1 to try and engage new readership,
or to pull back in recently lapsed readership. So I don't know what story you would tell. I mean, I guess actually, I'm glad they didn't do this, but in the sort of like publishing logic of Frontline, how do you provide a cap at the end of Frontline? You have like Larry Hama come back and do one more like short story, and something about it feels like another either bridge between the old continuity and the Devil's Due continuity, or you like have Roadblock or whoever's in this final issue do something or say something that slightly leads back into, say, issue 26, as opposed to like, well, we were publishing this side series of like slightly out of continuity stories, and then we stopped publishing it.
Now we've stopped. Bye. Like that. Okay. So that's the context around this issue. What actually happens on the inside? Jay, are you able to tell us?
I'm gonna try. In Los Angeles, Super Chef Supreme and G.I. Joe heavy machine gunner Marvin Hinton, aka Roadblock, is about to film a live episode of his TV show, Kiss Your Mama Home Cooking. At Joe HQ, Firewall and Russian transplant Diana, formerly of the October Guard, sit down with a big bowl of popcorn to watch the show. In another part of the base, Mainframe is following financial transactions he believes are linked to Cobra. 2 weeks later, Roadblock's producer introduces him to his new co-host, Fran Drescher, Mona Butcher, and her little dog, too. Back at Joe HQ, Mainframe has succeeded in hacking into Extensive Enterprises and begins investigating their financials. He discovers they're feeding money into a dummy corporation. At Extensive Enterprises in New York City, the Crimson Twins share some terrible dialogue, and Tomax tells Zaymot that someone has discovered one of their relocation schemes, the television network that airs Roadblock's cooking show. Zaymot tells Tomax to purge their computer system and have the Dreadnoks trash the TV studio. Back in LA, it's time for another episode of Kiss Your Mama Home Cooking, with Roadblock, Mona Butcher, and her little dog, too. During the filming of the episode, Mona's dog, who is lactose intolerant, eats an entire bowl of whipped cream sauce and becomes violently ill, throwing up in Roadblock's face just as the Dreadnoks show up. The Dreadnoks begin trashing the studio. Heartwrencher smashes Roadblock in the back of the head with a huge wrench and he goes down. Burnout steps up to the fallen Joe, is about to put a bullet in the back of his head when Mona Butcher appears, sick dog held high. The portly pug drenches Burnout in a sea of vomit. Roadblock gets up, and with Mona's help is able to defeat the Dreadnoks and get a plug-in for the Marvin Hinton grill at the same time. Back at Joe HQ, Firewall and Diana, who are again watching the live show, erupt in laughter. The next day, Roadblock's producer tells him they are retooling the show. It will now be called Cooking with Kung Fu Grip, and every week he will fight a new menace using cooking utensils with Mona's help.
Very good. Thank you, Jay. So I think, often when we're looking at these issues, we are thinking to ourselves, what is unique about this particular issue? And it feels like the unique thing about this issue is that it's pretty much an out-and-out, pretty broad G.I. Joe comedy. And I can't recall an issue before this point, and I'm struggling to remember any since that, would be defined as a comedy issue in the way that this one is.
Seems like it would be more suited for an episode of the TV show.
Mm.
Yeah. So,
and when I was writing the plot breakdown, that was kind of the way that I thought of it. And like at first, I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, okay, well, this is, like a half-hour sitcom or whatever. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. This doesn't all take place during the first filming, because I'm like, that couldn't have all happened. And then I hit the 2 weeks later, and then I kind of thought, well, wait, did they screw up and have Diana and Firewall, and so I checked to make sure they were wearing different clothes. At least they've got different clothes, or Diana does. So it's not like a real bad continuity gaffe where you got them watching the same show 2 weeks later or something. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it works. But yeah, it feels like an episode of the TV show. I thought it was fun.
Tim Seeley has an affinity for 1980s stuff, right? This isn't shocking. Lots of people in their 40s in comics right now do. But
And he made his name as a sort of creator outside of G.I. Joe with Hack Slash, which is kind of a throwback to like 80s horror comedies,
Yes. And he had a pitch. A friend of mine draws comics for publishers, and Seeley contacted him and had a pitch and wanted to do a comic with him that was a very particular 1980s pastiche, and it didn't work out. And then certainly like Seeley's, like connection to G.I. Joe demonstrates this interest in a lot of these 80s characters and tropes. And in looking at this issue, I agree with you guys. This is definitely an episode of the show. This is not an issue of the comic. But strangely, it's half an episode from the Marvel Productions, Sunbow Productions run. Half this is a Deke episode. And I will point out a particular moment later on which like screams like this is from a Deke episode. And this is one more sort of way in that like it's such a strange final issue for this series, and it's not a final issue, it's just the last one they happen to publish because it doesn't really connect to sort of the rest of Devil's Due's timeline or take on G.I. Joe. Jay, you mentioned that it's Diana who's sitting with Firewall. How do you know it's Diana?
She calls her that.
Does she?
Yeah.
When?
At least one panel. Well, even on the first page, they're sitting there talking, and she's like, "Is this fun for Americans?" And then,
oh, okay, all right. This is fun. This is fun for Americans.
And then if you
All
turn
right.
the page, the dialogue overlaps. And she made a joke or something, and on the top of the next page it says, "Good one, Diana."
Okay, all right. Well,
Yes,
color.
it's following on from the Cabal series where Diana, joins up with the
"I
Joes.
want to be a Joe now."
Right. Okay. Well, color me embarrassed for missing that detail. I missed that her name gets called out. But I thought, oh, it's Lady J because she has short hair, I guess.
And it's a nice piece of like continuity in the book as well, that we're actually sort of seeing a through line from previous issues of Devil's Due into this, and sort of quietly progressing that little storyline.
Yeah. All right. So when I open the comic book, something on the inside front cover and something on the first page that I really, really like and I really, really don't. The first panel of this comic book.
Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
Here come the nitpicker,
Timmy Finn,
and a little cool prankster,
Timmy Finn,
picking holes in your colouring.
Timmy Finn,
Still love G.I. Joe.
Timmy Finn.
No, he.
If you are wondering, if you're like, all right, I know Tim complains a lot about coloring in comics, but I want to really like give me a new example, right? Okay, everyone. The first panel of the first page of this comic book, G.I. Joe Frontline 18. This is very bad coloring, and here's why. On the right side between the two buildings, the sun is setting. And yet, the side of the buildings that has the letters like TVLA and the larger windows, those sides of the buildings are all brighter than the sides of the buildings that are perpendicular, right? So like the wall with the 4 smaller windows. And then these like palm trees and sort of bushes have this like very ugly, busy, just looks like an out of focus photograph of a giant pile of emeralds. This like, and then there's this highlight on the 3 windows of this car, right? This is not the color of light or the amount of light or the like shape of light that would be anywhere on this car, the trees, the building, based on that sunset. And this color artist put that sunset there, right? And then so it's all internally inconsistent. And yet, in the second panel, there's actually a really nice choice, which is for the light of the sunset coming into this hallway and hitting that like front desk where you check in, and then hitting the wall behind it with that doorway, as if it's coming in just through a window down the hallway to the right that we can't see. So within 2 panels, there's a really like pretty and nice decision right below like a pretty gradient in the sky behind everything, and a like very, very bad careless decision everywhere else in the panel. The thing that I like, the inside front cover, which is all designed by Mike Norton, the graphic designer, the art director at Devil's Due, looks like the nutrition facts label that you see on the side or the bottom of all food packaging in America, right? The font is right. The kerning and leading is almost perfect or close enough. It's funny. It looks good, and it relates to the issue. And we have seen a couple times some very handsome inside front covers on G.I. Joe Frontline.
Yeah, that inside front cover is nice. I noticed that. I mean, obviously. And it works, you know, like you said, it's just, boom, instantly recognizable, you know, for almost anyone. And, you know, cooking episode or issue.
And this issue follows on from a pin-up which is shown on the bottom of page 1, the poster of Roadblock there with Kiss Your Mama Home Cooking, which is by Mike Norton, which featured as a pin-up in a very early issue of the Devil's Due series. So sort of the genesis there of a funny little idea, you know, being spun off into its own issue some time later. Curious for this issue, we got, you know, quite a big spotlight on the Dreadnoks alongside Roadblock, and in particular the introduction of 2 new Dreadnoks, the female Dreadnok Heartwrench, who does reappear, and then the little sort of Flavor Flav style Dreadnok with the massive hat, top hat called Rugrat, and I can't recall if he does reappear anywhere or not. And I think that I might be imagining this, but I think that Heart Wrench did become a figure.
When does Heart Wrench show up again in the comics?
I think in the Tim Seeley penciled issues by Brandon Jura, she makes a reappearance.
Okay. All right, so we haven't seen her yet on this podcast.
No, and she does make a reappearance in the Zartan and Dreadnok issues in the Chuck Dixon verse over at IDW. She's sort of she's kind of Zartan's girlfriend in inverted commas in a couple of issues there when we're introduced to the Dreadnoks out in the outback in Australia.
If you can add 2 letters, her name is Heart Wrencher, not just Heart Wrench. And she does get an action figure.
It was looks like it was back in 2018. G.I. Joe Collectors Club exclusive Heart Wrencher coming with the Dreadnok Ground Assault Stinger.
Who are the other 2 Dreadnoks? Go to page 12 when you've got them peeking around the corner. There's Burnout, Naugahyde. Is that Road Pig in the back? And who's the other guy? Are these just like new characters?
We've got some unnamed ones. We've kind of got a giant kind of Russian facial scarred kind of Dreadnok, and a punky looking vest top and braces with mohawk character who don't appear to be named, and I suspect probably never appear again.
Okay.
I feel like the one with the scar, I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a Popeye vibe from him. You guys know how in Bibbo from the Superman comics?
Yeah.
Like he's just Popeye. And he also shows up in the 1997 animated series. I feel a little bit like this is basically sort of G.I. Joe doing Popeye, because I can't tell if it's a sailor's hat or sort of a very particular haircut, but one of his eyes is closed, right? And Popeye doesn't have a scar on his face, but in the world of Dreadnoks, why might you have your eye half closed? And he's really, really big. He just says which could correspond to Popeye sort of muttering to himself in the 1930s flight cartoons.
That would be the Dreadnought Sailor Man.
Maybe he's like anchor away or something. So something I appreciate about Mike Norton's pencils here, he draws a very big, very tall roadblock.
Mm-hmm.
And on pages 2 and 3, when Roadblock is standing in front of his producer, he is 3 heads taller than her. And if it seems like sort of too much of an exaggeration, like in the story of G.I. Joe, Roadblock is like 6'2" or 6'3" or 6'4", and I think we've all seen like people in offices or like television producers who are like 5'2", and there's a wonderful artist who has drawn a lot of G.I. Joe comics for the monthly A Real American Hero, who never quite got Roadblock to be sort of taller and beefier than the other Joes, and here it is back in 2003, a very tall, very big Roadblock. I also, going back to our point about this being an episode of the comic, some of Roadblock's dialogue rhymes. So in the way that the Devils Do Run is a slight mixture of the animated continuity, like with extensive, not just Tomex and Zaymot, but Extensive Enterprises, for example. This is doing that.
Yeah. I'm big and tall, and I'll cook for y'all. That kind of thing. Nice.
I spy with my little eye.
For me, I've got I Spies, and I think a big part of this issue is just like little fun nods and sort of cameos and that kind of thing. So it's a lot of kind of knowing winks of, who might that character be? What, let's drop someone in the background. That kind of thing. So you've got kind of on page 1 painting by the numbers with Willie Wilderman or something, sort of a Bob Ross style character. You've got inclusion of kind of background characters like Dana in there, but also sort of just walking along the corridor, you'll see in the background Airwave from Sky Patrol with alongside Scoop, who another character that we haven't seen yet in Devil's Due continuity.
I wondered who those guys were.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Freefall, but you're right. It's Scoop sort of colored wrong, like Freefall.
Well, of course he's colored wrong.
Is he colored? He's not colored that wrong.
Well, I mean, he's brown, not yellow, and he's gray, not green.
Okay.
Or wait. Oh, you know what? I think this is Night Force Scoop.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's not wanting to be shot at as much Scoop variant. and another little touch that I like was just a couple of pages over was Tomex and Zaymot. He's got one of them, Zaymot, because he's got a scar, is getting an executive massage there from his executive assistant, and they've also got a televiper there, a female televiper, and he's leaning over her screen and twiddling her fair hair, so it's sort of somewhat evocative to the kind of office environment that Tomex and Zaymot might be running up there in their no good Extensive Enterprises.
It's funny that the female televiper's uniform has cleavage. It kind of made me think of the short miniskirts in classic Trek.
I actually had a problem with this.
Yeah, it is bad.
It's like the Halloween costume. You'll have a Freddy Krueger for Halloween costume, and then you'll have for the girls a sexy Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, I actually have 3 problems with this page, the Tomax and Zaymot page with the 2 women at Extensive Enterprises. earlier in our episode, Jay was making the point that in Tim Seeley's earlier in artist Tim Seeley's earlier G.I. Joe work, there are a lot of straight shots where we're like not far enough away to fully understand how a space is populated, and a page comes across as boring, and these are my words, boring and underdrawn. And exciting that issue 17 with Beachhead, there's much less of that. This page, it sort of looks like Mike Norton is like doing a Tim Seeley impression. This page is really boring and underwhelming, and
harsh.
And it's like, well, Tim, it's just like two people and two other people talking in office. Yeah, this page is really boring. The Televiper's cleavage, I'm bothered by it because, like, cool, finally, like a random woman soldier, Cobra soldier or Viper or Televiper in all this like world of G.I. Joe. And it isn't like a special episode like Spell of the Siren, where the Baroness puts all the men in Joe and Cobra under her control, and you need to have some women soldiers, otherwise the story doesn't work. This is just like some random, and Mark makes a good point that there's a comment here about like toxic masculinity in the workplace. At the same time, even though we're not like, Televiper isn't like leaning over the desk and spilling her breasts onto the desk for the benefit of the male gaze of the male reader, that cleavage doesn't make any sense. Like, the Televiper costume doesn't do that. And even though her breasts are blocked by the clothing, the cropping of the panel, and the computer monitor, still very subtly, this feels like a dude drawing a hot babe and like sort of like chuckling that he got away with it.
Obvious cleavage.
So this part of this panel is dumb. And then the panel below it, I like the idea of Xamot getting an executive massage. But remember there was an earlier issue of G.I. Joe where, help me out, Flint and Baroness are surrounded by random bad guys, but only one of them is sort of like visible and sort of specific, and it's like a white bald guy. And I made the joke like, oh, they're surrounded by Professor Xavier, right? So
yeah, that was the cover of one of the Cabal issues.
Okay, thank you.
First one.
All right. So even though this is a bit character here, giving Xamot a massage, and doesn't have dialogue, we never see it again, shouldn't matter. It's like, folks, if you have a scene in a G.I. Joe comic, particularly in a Cobra office, and there's a woman with round glasses and long black hair, I'm going to think it's the Baroness. So even though it's like, well, Tim, it's obviously not the Baroness. It's like, well, once I read the context of the page, yes, I'm 95% sure it's not the Baroness. But when I see this page, I'm thinking, oh, the Baroness is here. What's she doing? Well, that's weird. And then I'm distracted and taken out of the story. So, it's like if you draw a Spider-Man comic and you have like an old lady with a very particular like gray hairdo, you're like, oh, it's Aunt May. It's like, no, if you're going to draw some other old lady in a Spider-Man comic, she has to have like very different hair or different skin, different clothes. So anyway, I don't like this page. In terms of getting back to sort of story and the overall issue, Jay used the term sitcom, right? And this is very situation and comedy, right? So, okay, I'll jump to the end. I don't love this issue. I appreciate the attempt to make a very different issue, a funny issue, a different kind of roadblock spotlight issue. I don't think the Dreadnought attack works. There aren't any stakes, and if I was Roadblock, I would be much more I would be concerned in a different way and much more concerned. His reaction is sort of this is like 6 random vandals. It's like, no, Roadblock, do you remember that terrorist organization that you guys defeated and then you disbanded? And but like, also I'm not quite I don't know quite in the timeline, because the Joes were sort of partly called back to active duty or like inactive passive duty during Reinstated. So it's like, is Roadblock completely out, or is he like Stalker or like Flint and Lady J or Scarlet, where he's sort of half back as a civilian, but also like half the time a Joe? So I don't really know from this, but it's like, hey, retired Joe, there are 2 Cobra guys in your studio. And he like like sort of the best he can do is make a reference to like Jinx's weapon, because he's using a like a microphone boom, sort of as like Jinx's weapon that comes with her action figure. It's like, hey, Roadblock, Cobra just attacked your job. And then the sort of like the running gag of his producer who tells her camera operator to keep shooting because, you know, like America television audiences like want a fight, and this is like live and real. And it's like, yes, I think there are jokes to be made here about like low budget television, local or regional television, the risks of a live broadcast, that Roadblock is like a celebrity or a wannabe celebrity, and that some other shows would watch it and like think it's silly or make fun of him, but also enjoy it. I think the idea, like the joke on the final page, it's like, okay, it's certainly consistent with this issue's tone. And if I can click into that, it's like a funny way to end this story, both as a visual and as a written punchline. But I'm not ever impressed in like TV or movies when like someone uses a baby or a pet that's vomiting as a prop or a weapon, right?
You didn't like The Boys?
I have not seen The Boys.
Oof. There's a killer scene in there if anybody knows what I'm talking about.
Okay, and then I think all the stuff with Roadblock is like on the line, but basically fine. It's like, okay, and like Fran Drescher joins the show, like that's a little silly, but you know, like conflict makes drama. So what would Roadblock do with a co-host? But then the stuff with Mainframe, it's like once again, it's like this is the second time this has happened in the Devil's Due G.I. Joe where someone's like, I want to be cool like Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes is the coolest Joe. It's like, no, everyone who's writing G.I. Joe comics, that's how I, the fan, toy buyer, kid, reader feels. That's not how a Joe feels, because Joes don't have inferiority complexes. Joes are all the best of the best, and they're all incredibly capable. In fact, you might say they're experts. And like, yes, you can be grateful on a mission that Snake Eyes is there because he's the best of the best of the best. Or he can do some things that you can't do because you're just like a parachute guy or a like explosives expert guy, and Snake Eyes is a ninja commando with a wolf. But like Mainframe like talking to himself and then like catching it and then like standing up and taking a silly pose and like narrating that he's cool, like that's embarrassing. And there's no version of G.I. Oh wait, but there is. It's the Deke episodes, right? So the reason why this issue, why I didn't like grumble and like toss it aside and like just put a big X on my notes for this podcast. The reason why I'm like okay with this issue is because we have seen very silly G.I. Joe. The first season of Deke's G.I. Joe, which I call season 3 and everyone else calls series 2, season 1. The first season, right, which starts with Operation Dragonfire, is I think it's 24 episodes total. That is a little less serious than the Sunbow G.I. Joe. It's the final season of G.I. Joe where Cobra Commander is back in blue, that it just becomes all silly. And what like hurts even more is there are like music cues for like when like Naugahyde is like, I don't know, like slipping on a banana peel, that kind of thing. Or like Metalhead is like talking about how he's going to blow something up and then like blows up the wrong thing by accident. And then Cobra Commander is like, Metalhead, you nitwit. It's like, ugh, these are terrorists. These are like bad guys. And near the end of the issue, after the Dreadnoks attack, Naugahyde is looking at 2 cans of grease, vegetable shortening, right? So like Crisco. And he says, must be like prey, be part of the environment. And he's got all this like grease, this shortening on his hands, while Roadblock is like punching the Mohawk Dreadnought. And then at the beginning of the next page, Roadblock turns and he says, that's that, Snake. So what you waiting for? And he sees Naugahyde, who's holding a meat tenderizer and a knife. And Naugahyde says, I'm going to poach your eyes, Joe, which is actually pretty fierce for Deke. And Naugahyde is like glistening, and he doesn't have his vest on, and he jumps at Roadblock, and he hits him in the arm with the meat tenderizer. And then, I'm sorry, this might be the worst G.I. Joe panel ever in G.I. Joe comics. Roadblock, I think he's trying to grab, but he still just looks like he runs past. And Roadblock is narrating himself, and Roadblock says, "Where'd you go?" Because Naugahyde is like literally 4 inches on his left, but I guess he's so slippery that Roadblock couldn't grab him to, I don't know, pick him up. And this just feels like not like the silly Deke episodes from 1991. This feels like the like unwatchable Hanna-Barbera animation of the 1970s, where everyone is stupid, nothing interesting happens, and there are no stakes.
You keep on saying that there's no stakes. There's clearly one on the front cover, right?
It's right on the package.
Right next to the Marvin Hinton grill.
Right on the package.
So again, like reading this issue didn't make me angry. I have burned off a lot of frustration with like the Devil's Due era from like doing these episodes, and certainly this issue, like this. Here's I don't mean in terms of the story. I mean in terms of publishing. The stakes, the like value, are like much less high and lofty and risky in like the final issue of Frontline, which just reads like a fill-in issue, than say like Reinstated, where it's like, oh my god, please get this right, please get this right. Because this is internally consistent and like fun but silly.
Yeah.
I don't mind this, but I'm never going to like recommend this issue to anyone.
That's kind of the way I look at it.
Would you recommend an issue of G.I. Joe to read? Yep. This one.
You were going through
Start here.
Pointing out.
Special Missions 2.
Oh, I kind of agree with you. You know, you were going through pointing out, well, this wouldn't happen. This is illogical. This is, inconsistent. But it just, the whole thing just reads like an episode of the cartoon, maybe Deke or Sunbow combined, like you said. But there were things in those where, it was like storytelling shorthand that we were able to just forgive because, okay, it worked for the story. Move on. As long as it's not, anything real offensive or illogical, we're able to go with it. There's some silly stuff in here, but I thought overall it worked. I thought it was, it was fun. I'm with you. I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, this is the one you got to read. It'd probably be the almost last one on the list, but it was fun. It was more fun than the last one.
I know I just talked for several minutes in a row. I just want to get in one more very quick thought. If you want a sense of G.I. Joe animation that deals with live television and is funny and smart about it, but there are still stakes and the bad guys are bad, watch Cobrathon, the episode from 1986, the season 2 episode, where Cobra is fundraising live.
Yeah.
Like they're just hosting a telethon for people to call in and give them money.
It's hilarious.
And my favorite thing to do is to compare the Sunbow episodes and the Deke episodes, because if you squint and turn your head sideways, you can see where a Deke episode, if you did like 3 things differently, or like a couple of them, if you had just like magically the voice actors from the original episodes, like re-record a Deke episode, everyone would be fine with it. But it's sort of the like double, triple, quadruple whammy of like the animation isn't as good. It's like the newer characters, the voices are different, the music is different. And then like the tone.
I'll just say one more thing and then we'll move on. So the just on the oiled up Naugahyde, I wonder if the creators had in mind the sequence with Jason Statham from The Transporter, which was released in 2002, where similarly oiled up Statham was in a action sequence where he was the enemy combatants were struggling to get hold of him because he was oiled up.
If Norton and Seeley want to do this in this issue, I think the fight needs to be a little more between like the two of them and not a throwaway gag. Because I haven't seen Transporter, but I get the sense that if Jason Statham takes the time to do that, like the fight choreography lets us enjoy the bad guy's frustration as they can't get a hold of him, and like Statham's like getting a little bit more like cocky or like confident because it's like, yeah, I'm gonna win this fight. Like, I'm so smart. They're like, oh, I can't. But this one goes by so fast. If it's gonna be like actually not a silly thing that Naugahyde does, but a smart thing, because it's like, well, what should he use in a cooking in a kitchen? Like, shortening grease. It's like, oh, well, now you got to like actually make good use of it.
Tim, did you have any more I Spies? Or did you point out some?
I have a question for an I Spy. What is the thing on page 1, panel 1, all the way on the top left? It's there's a billboard that says "Coming Soon," and it looks like Devil's Due has comped in the cover of some other Devil's Due comic, and I can't tell what the word is. A, B, G, and then a symbol, and then something MS? Is there some... I'm sort of wondering if like,
I'd have to look at like their
what else
publishing
they were
catalog for that period.
Yeah, and usually I'd think like, oh, maybe this is for like Micronauts, and it's like, oh, I can see the logo on the back cover, or there's an ad.
But
at
it's
the back
so small, you can't make it out.
So that's an I Spy that I can't make out.
I have a couple. I really liked in one. I think it was, the first time that Firewall and Diana are watching TV. I love that Diana has an "I Love New York" T-shirt on, just because, if she just came to America on a whim because she's going to be a Joe, she's probably not going to have that many clothes, So yeah, she would be wearing clothes that look like a tourist. So I thought that was kind of neat.
And their base is in the Americana Museum, so possibly poached from the gift shop of the Americana Museum. Yeah.
And then the other one was Paige.
Also immediately behind Dana on this panel as well, there's a nice little picture of a fraction of the original team.
I had that in there, but I will skip that.
I'm gonna add a tiny I Spy, since Jay just mentioned the panel where Firewall and Dana are sitting next to a vending machine, and the choices in the vending machine are water, Yojo Cola, root beer, and Yojo Cola.
And my last I Spy on page 12, when the dog throws up on Roadblock, just like Lardass throwing up on Bill Travis in Stand By Me.
Okay.
I've got some post-its on Mainframe's desk. We've got Git New Comset for Spearhead and Gumbo in Gung Ho's laptop, please fix.
There were a lot of little in-jokes in here.
I like the idea that Mainframe is bored, or like a nerd, or underappreciated. I think the idea that he would have some kind of outburst or behavior that a couple other Joes walking by would notice, I think that's fine. I think, these characters, this book can have a sense of humor, but where do you place that on the continuum of, broad humor or much more like refined or specific humor?
And I'll close it out that we've obviously got one of the main characters here is Miss Dimples, the lactose intolerant, vomiting pug dog, and Mike Norton went on to make as his signature character a pug centric book, Battle Pug.
That's good. Oh wait, do we have one more? Almost. I think we do. Okay. Second to last page. First panel, the next day, Roadblock's looking over the somewhat destroyed set, and there's a janitor sweeping up behind him. And I think this is kind of the Viper from The Viper is Coming.
Again.
You know what? Maybe I take that back. Because in the cartoon... Oh, you know what? I take that back. The cartoon, he has glasses and he's short. And we actually haven't we seen him?
Yeah, we saw him in the bar. In the bar sequence.
Okay. Homecoming story arc? Was that what that was?
Yeah. All right. Sorry. I'm going to take that back. I'm going to say this is just not a caricature, but this is Norton drawing sort of a more specific person as a background character than sort of any generic person. So I take that back.
Okay, so I think that's us done with the issue. It just leaves to look at a Yo-Joe score. It doesn't sound like it's going to be pretty. Tim, why don't you go first?
4. I've said everything I need to say. 4.
And Jay?
Jeez, I gave the last one 4. I do like this one better than the last one. And like I said, the fact that it reads like an episode of the cartoon really allowed me to forgive a lot of the shortcomings. You know, it wasn't like the last one where we had, a story which should have been deadly serious, that the art was kind of miscast. This is just, it basically hits everything it's trying to do. It's cartoony, it's sitcom-y, so you're able to forgive a lot of the stuff. I wouldn't mind reading this one again, I'll say 5.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's in the same boat. It's not my cup of tea for G.I. Joe, but the art is nice. What it's trying to do, that generally does fairly well, even if it's not the kind of G.I. Joe story that appeals to me. So yeah, it's fine, but not necessarily a story that I'd go back and seek out in a reread. So let's say 5.5 for me. So that is us wrapped up with Frontline. We can close the book on that.
This is the sound of me actually closing the book, closing the final issue of Frontline next to my microphone. Here we go.
See, that wasn't quite as weighty as my closing of the book, because I've got a custom bound hardcover, so it's a little bit more.
Probably weighs like 5 pounds.
Yeah. So very good. We'll hop on back to reading the main series, picking up with issue 26. But before we get to that, we will have a Golden Joes, where we can pick some highlights and lowlights of the 18 issue Frontline run. So look forward to that. Cool. So do you think, have we got enough time for a second round of Squidguenjo?
Yes.
Everyone's new favourite game show.
G.I. Joe, Cobra, general knowledge.
So last time we looked at Squidmark. This time my questions are about Captain Squidiron, the famous G.I. Joe American football themed character.
He's got these grenades.
Obscure characters.
He's got these grenades that they got little handles, and they're shaped like crab cakes.
Okay, so I've got a few questions for you.
I think I know what character you're talking about.
Relatively obscure. So don't look him up, because you'll find the answers to some of these questions.
I won't. I'm not looking anything up.
He's like a kind of green character. He's kind of got an American football style helmet, and he's got these grenades shaped like miniature American footballs.
I think I had that character.
Oops! I just gave away the answer to my first question.
Ask it anyway. Ask it anyway.
So, Tim, a low ball first question to you. What is unique about Captain Gridiron's grenades? An easy one.
They are shaped like crab cakes.
Incorrect. They're in the shape of American footballs. Jay.
That was a trick question.
Jay, how many detachable throwing grenades and rockets are there? So how many small pieces of kit has Captain Gridiron got that can be easily lost and inflate the in price on the secondary market when it comes for resale 30 years later?
Like I said, I'm just from memory, so I really don't even know. I'm thinking maybe he's got 3 small grenades and then like 2. I don't know. I'm gonna say 4 altogether. Just as a wild guess.
Can I jump in?
Go and jump in, Tim.
I think it's 3 grenades and 4 rockets on the
Ding,
tip
ding,
of
ding.
his
It's a
weird gun
total
thing.
of
Okay,
7.
he had the gun that had like the. Yeah, okay.
He would hold it with 2 hands, right?
Yeah, it's got like a thing at the front that's got a grip on it. Yeah, so 2-handed grip. So, 2 grenades on his leg, 1 on his backpack, and 4 rockets on his weird-looking gun.
And then 1 more grenade on his dinner plate.
Because it is a crab cake.
Because he thinks it's... Because Captain Squidiron thinks... Next question.
I
Okay.
can't wait to go to Yojo or 3D Joe's and look at this guy.
He looms large for me because he's spotlighted in 2 or 3 Deke episodes.
Okay.
He's sort of the Duke of the first Deke season.
So, Tim, you know this guy so well, so this isn't going to be at all challenging. What is his primary military specialty?
Oh. Is it something like distance munitions? Because he like throws grenades and he shoots rockets, right? Isn't it
He does do that, but unfortunately it's not his primary military specialty.
Wait. Cooking.
That's a primary military specialty these days.
No, sorry. Secondary is cooking. Primary is sports commentating. Jay, your turn.
Your guess, Jay?
Shoot, I can't even think. Drill instructor.
It is hand-to-hand combat, my friends.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
So, Jay, what do you think brought him to the attention of the G.I. Joe team? Closest answer, or one that makes me laugh the loudest, wins.
His unbridled brutality on the football field. They thought if we don't scoop this guy up, the Dreadnoks are going to get him.
That sounds like a good criteria. The Dreadnoks get the best guys.
Right.
So that's kind of why Red Dog joined the team, right? Because he got kicked out of professional sports, right?
That sounds plausible to me.
Although I don't think Larry Hama wrote the file cards for Slaughter's team there, because those guys show up in the movie first. I'm going to guess his unstoppable sports puns brought him to the attention. Man, if you've not seen Pigskin Commandos, a season 3 episode of G.I. Joe, where the sentence is actually coming out of my mouth, Sergeant Slaughter's sister is kidnapped by Cobra, and so the Joes play a game of sports against Cobra to rescue her. You do not know Captain Gridiron.
Oh dear. No, he was brought to the attention of the G.I. Joe team by his odd-shaped balls. No, it wasn't. It was his determination. It was his determination to be where the action is.
Okay, so that line. So I have never done a specific try to figure out exactly which file cards Larry Hama wrote and which ones he didn't. But we know that some of the later ones he didn't write, and you can usually tell. And I don't have Gridiron's file card in front of me, so I'm not reading the rest of it. But that sentence to me rings a little not of the Larry Hama style of writing. And either I feel like, okay, maybe Gridiron's was written by someone at Hasbro, or maybe Gridiron's was partially edited and rewritten by someone at Hasbro.
But this was a later figure, wasn't it? I mean, there was a while, a couple years there where Larry didn't write him. Didn't he say that he would write him for a while and then they'd fire him and,
That's right.
The other people would suck and they'd pay him more money to come back and do it?
He has said that, and I haven't sat down to read them all and try and parse it out based on guessing and style or asking him and other people who were at Hasbro. But I'm not clear on sort of okay, when he wasn't doing it, was this for a couple of months and then it was time for the next batch and they realized that they wanted him to do it? Or was this several years and they came back to him?
This is, for the record, this is 1990 that Captain Gridiron came out. Okay, final one. Captain Gridiron does an imitation of a classic Hollywood actor, but which one?
And then that does sound like something that Hama might write.
This is how they close out the file card.
John Wayne.
Oh, I was going to say John Wayne.
Are you both saying John Wayne? Seriously?
Yeah.
Well,
That's right.
yeah.
Oh my!
Oh, nice.
And neither of you are cheating.
No.
No.
What? How is that
You
possible?
said classic Hollywood actor. You think classic macho tough guy Hollywood. It's John Wayne, Charles Bronson, or Clint Eastwood. And John Wayne's the original, so it's John Wayne.
Yeah, it's whether it's maybe this isn't Hama. Maybe this is like not necessarily Kirk Bazigian because he was now like several steps above this, but like maybe I think was Carl Fritz the copywriter by then, or was he on Transformers? I can imagine someone at Hasbro, like Jay just said, coming up with a short list, and they're not going to pick something like Jeff Goldblum, or like Buddy Hackett,
Action hero.
Yeah, it's gonna be an action hero.
Excellent. So that's it. That's the end of my squid puns. But will this continue? We'll find out in the future. So, any suggestions for?
I'm always up to be quizzed about
squid-based GI Joe names. We might try and eke it out even without the squid pun. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, as I say, next time on GI Joe Disavowed, we'll be talking Frontline for one last time as we award some awards in Golden Joes, and then we'll all be back here for the first issue proper of the Brandon Jerwa era, where he takes up the full writing chores for the main book with issue 26. And back over on the regular show, we're continuing to cover ARA as it comes out monthly. We've just talked about issue 287 with the artist Billy Penn, and next up is 288 with a spotlight on Falcon. So, guys, where can people find you, Tim?
My comic book store in Somerville, Massachusetts is Hub Comics, and our website is hubcomics.com, and my G.I. Joe blog is arealamericanbook.com.
And it's probably worth pointing out to the listeners that, Tim, you have got quite a good selection of G.I. Joe comics and trade paperbacks and whatnot in your store. So if people are in the vicinity and they have not visited you before, and they are G.I. Joe fans with some gaps in their collection, it wouldn't be the worst idea to go over to Somerville and visit your shop.
Yeah, and we do have many of the 2010 continued Real American Hero issues, which I know some people have a hard time finding, or the prices are high on the secondary market, and we have many of them, and the prices are not at all high. Indeed. Like sometimes they're cover price or $1.
Wow. You're sitting on a gold mine, Tim. Jay, where can people find you?
Like lurking around the corner in Somersville at Hub Comics, waiting for the door to open because I want to get in there and check it out.
People can find
the cool bookshelves and stuff.
People can find Jay covering himself with Crisco on the set of a live cooking show before a fight.
Yeah, that might work. Break Room Sketches on Facebook.
Very good. And you can find more about the show at the usual places. talkingjoe.co.uk is the website that has links to those places. Our Facebook group, where we discuss all sorts of G.I. Joe stuff, including the latest podcast. So if you're not yet a member and enjoy the show, head on over there. We're Talking Joe on Twitter and Talking Joe Comics on Instagram. We're also on Patreon, patreon.com/talkingjoe, where if you want to support the show and chip in a few quid, then you are more than welcome to join the likes of our backers, Richard, Sam, Jay, Bill, Christopher, and Justin, who are all getting early access to episodes as well as a warm glow from supporting us. And that's us done. But remember,
nobody beats Talking Joe,
a Real American podcast
with a guy from England who can talk in American accent sometimes really badly.
Oh, I want to hear that.
Later, tomatoes.
So Is her name Diana or Dana?
Dana.
I don't know.
Dana.
Okay.
Yeah, Daina. Not
Okay.
Diana. What did I call her? Diana?
You called her Diana, and I called her Diana. Yeah, and Yojo, she's Dana on JoeFandom.com, Joe.fandom.com. Okay.
It's easily done
All right.
because you don't get too many Danas out there in the world that we encounter on a day-to-day basis, whereas there's lots of there's more
Odd
famous
spelling.
Dianas, isn't there?
A couple.
Yeah, so I think our brains just pass it, doesn't it? As Diana. I must admit that's the way I mentally read it until I think I was listening to Talking Joe and they talked
So
about
you
it.
knew better. And you go, oh, I've been mispronouncing this wrong the whole time.
And now I know.
That's why I was glad when the X-Men movies came out, so then people would stop mispronouncing Magneto.
Magneto.
Right.
Magneto.